Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. I am your host, Viz, and today we are joined by Jay Prishkulnik. Jay, thank you
Hi,
so much.
Jai.
Jai, sorry.
All
I've
good.
been practicing the last name all day long, and when you know it, I screw up the first name that only has two letters.
The last
Jai.
name was perfect.
Jai, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure to talk to you. The movie was so much fun, and let's just get right to it. Now, Monster High, I did a bit of research on it. It was a fashion doll. It was a toy that started in 2010 that became so enormously successful, it started spawning these animated television movies. Uh, Now, what were your thoughts when you got this role? Did you know anything about Monster High? Did you have to look it up? What exactly was your knowledge of the show?
Yeah, so I actually grew up seeing the dolls in stores. I really admired them. I wasn't allowed to have them back then, but I did play with them a lot when I went to my cousin's house because she had like every single doll. So when I got the audition, I just watched as much content as I could. There are a bunch of different, or now we're in the third generation of Monster High. So at the time, there were only two generations.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, there are so many different there were a web series, and then a bunch of different movies. So there was a lot of material for me to look into when I got the audition.
And I want to tell our audience before we continue, the movie is out now and available on Paramount Plus. So you don't have to wait. You can go and check it out. It's a children's family movie musical on top of that
Yeah.
as well. Now with, family shows, you it's a testament to the success of this franchise that it's going on 12 years now, because what happens is kids have their favorite shows, they grow up, but what's going on with this one is a new generation has come in to take its place, and it's sort of sustained the franchise, and it keeps getting more and more popular. What do you attribute its success to, that it's passed on from one generation to the next already?
Oh, that's such a great question. Um, I think, well, you said it. I think what everybody loves about Monster High is what it had when it first started, which is that it's a fashion doll.
Uh-huh.
And it's all about embracing the part of yourself that's so unique that no one else has. And they do that through these different monster archetypes in the form of teenagers.
Yes.
So I think it's a really fun idea that any generation can really see themselves reflected in. But I think with each iteration, they continue to expand upon ideas of diversity and inclusion and self acceptance. And I just think all of those themes are really timeless.
Absolutely. Now, as we mentioned earlier, this is also a musical. How
Yeah.
rigorous was the audition process when it came to the musical aspect and the dance, the choreography of the movie?
Yes. So the audition process for me included a self tape of, I think, three or four of the scenes, which I then had two subsequent callbacks
Mm-hmm.
after my original tape. And that also included a song of my choice. I had to sing about a minute of a song. I chose The Man by Taylor Swift
Nice.
because I thought what better to represent Cleo Denial than a song about a woman imagining how much more powerful she would be if only she were a man.
Yeah.
Um, and then for the three leads, I know that they also had to submit a dance tape. And I think Mia, who plays Claudine, and Case, who plays Deuce, I think they even did a chemistry read on Zoom where they had to sing a duet together.
Wow.
And we're all familiar with Zoom, so I
Yeah.
think we can all respect how difficult that would have been to just be in harmony with one another, but they did it.
Absolutely. And it came out great on the screen. Now, when you guys got to
Yeah.
filming, how much time was spent on the choreography? I know there's a scene in the classroom where you partake in the choreography as well. How intense was, just getting that choreography right?
It was pretty intense. When we first arrived in Vancouver, which is where we shot the film, we had 2 weeks of boot camp prep, which was completely devoted to learning the choreography, figuring out wardrobe, doing screen tests with the wigs and the makeup. And then we started shooting.
Okay.
And, 2 weeks, it may or may not sound like a lot of time, but me for sure, I could have used at least 2 months because I needed the practice. But fortunately, we had some really amazing choreographers, so patient and so kind and so enthusiastic. And they were with us every step of the way, helping us learn the dances. It was definitely a lot of work in a really short amount of time. But I think having the whole team there really helped everybody get up to
Uh-huh.
speed in time.
Now, you play Cleo Denial, okay?
Yeah.
She comes across as your teen popular mean girl. Did you
Mhm.
sort of embrace that aspect of Cleo and run with it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's who she is. She's shameless about that. And that's what she's loved for in the existing fandom. So our reimagination of the story definitely called upon that personality trait of hers. She's got the attitude, the boldness, and the sass. And as an actor, I'm trained never to judge the character
Mm-hmm.
because the moment you start judging the character, the further you get away from authentically portraying them.
Yeah.
So for me, my work began by justifying her actions, seeing where in her relationships and the dynamics with the people or the monsters around her, and her motives, why is she behaving the way that she does? And once I plug in that way, it's easy to just embrace all of her quirks and the full spectrum of her attitude and just have fun with it.
Now, Cleo Denial is Cleopatra. Now, it's sort of hinted at the movie, but I do have this question for you. Is your character like a descendant of Cleopatra? Is it the reincarnation of Cleopatra? How was that explained to you?
So that's a fantastic question. Um, I know that Cleo Denial is obviously inspired by the real life Cleopatra in our world. I have seen a few fan art designs that say Cleo Denial is the granddaughter of
Mm-hmm.
Cleopatra. I'm not sure how true that is in canon, but I did have a pretty extensive conversation with one of our executive producers, Adam Bonnet, about this because I really love doing research on the background of a character. And for Cleo, that also included learning about the real life of Cleopatra, her education, her family, and her
Mm-hmm.
upbringing to plug that into Cleo Denial. And Adam told me that in this world of Monster High, Cleo knows of the real life Cleopatra and she dislikes her because she doesn't want there to be a Cleo more famous than she is, which I think
Ah,
is very in line with her. So I'm
exactly.
not sure whether or not they're related in this world, but I think it was still really great to have that information to pull upon.
Were you able to sort of throw in your own twist to the character of Cleo?
Yeah, well, I don't want to take full credit for it because this whole thing was such a collaborative process. But I did work a lot with Todd and Adam, and from the very beginning, from the time I got the breakdown for the character, I remember it saying right in there, Cleo is not your average mean girl. We don't want you to play her like the Regina George
Yeah.
or any of Hollywood's other infamous mean girls. So from the beginning, I tried to think of how I could bring myself to the character to really put a more unique spin on her. And something that I found in common with Cleo is that we're both competitive in the sense of being very academically inclined.
Mm-hmm.
So I pitched the idea to Adam and Todd, let's make Cleo the top monster in her class.
Yeah.
And so those moments in the movie where you see Cleo competing with Frankie to be the first one to answer, or trying to be two steps ahead and figure things out before everyone else. I think that's where her academic intellectual edge comes into play.
Okay, that makes total sense. Now, what do you think Cleo is trying to prove? I mean, she seems like she's just as insecure as any other teen would be at Monster High, but it feels like Cleo has something extra that she's trying to prove. What do you think that is?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there beneath her layers, pun intended. Um, because when you look at the other Monster High films, you see that there's a lot of tension and sibling rivalry between Cleo and her older sister Nephra, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of expectation from her father, very similar to what Draculaura experiences in school, with trying to be the top of her class because her father expects it. So I think Cleo definitely wants to be seen as an equal, and I
Mm-hmm.
think she has this facade of entitlement to make herself feel better,
Yeah.
when in actuality, I think she is struggling, like you said, with those
Mm-hmm.
feelings of insecurity and vulnerability and questioning whether she is enough once she strips down this facade. And I think that this film is does a really great job of showing us what Cleo could like at the end of this redemption arc,
Exactly.
and sort of putting her into, what could the next few years of high school look like now that she has sort of embraced her vulnerabilities.
And since you brought up Redemption Arc, what do you think when you read the script of Cleo? You know, she does. I mean, Cleo is not a bad person. Let's just put that out there. She really isn't. But at the end, she, you know, teams up with her classmates to help protect everybody, and that is sort of her redemption arc. What do you think of that aspect of the story?
Well, when I first read the script, I was actually really surprised. Spoiler alert, just in case anyone hasn't seen the movie, I was pretty positive that Cleo was the villain.
Oh,
So I was shocked when it wasn't, and I won't say who it is in case people haven't seen it yet. Um, but I really admired how we get to see this other side of her at the end. And her wrapped up mummy heart sort of melts when Claudine goes out of her way and puts her own safety at risk to
mm-hmm.
rescue Cleo. I think that is when Cleo really sees, oh, maybe I don't need to garner friendship from fear mongering. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I can just spread love like this new monster at school, because it seems to be working out pretty well for her.
Oh, definitely. Now, what I think is great is that this takes real, everyday aspects of teenage life and puts it in the fun setting of a monsters in high school. But it relays the message to kids: hey, it's okay to be different. Do you like
Yeah.
that theme, that undertone of the story?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's at its heart what Monster High is really all about.
Mm-hmm.
I think we see that in their slogan: be unique, be yourself, be a monster, or be yourself, be unique. I always forget the order that it goes in. Um, but yeah, I think that ultimately that's really what viewers want to see. And somehow, I don't know the psychology about it, but I think somehow it's more digestible when you're not seeing actual teenagers, you're
Yeah,
seeing monster teenagers. So it's easier to engage with, it's more entertaining that way.
exactly. It adds that fun
But
element to it.
exactly. But I think with that really important message underneath, I mean, there's such a beating heart to this film.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the film that we made during production really translated into the final product. And
Yeah.
so I'm really thrilled about that.
Now, there's a overarching theme as well about humans are the enemy in the movie. Until,
Mhm.
well, we're not going to give anything away, but if any humans are a danger to us, uh, why do you think that element is so important to be put into the story?
Yeah, I think that I think that's really important for this specific story. Again, I won't say, or actually, no, I guess it is revealed in sort of the breakdown of the story. But we know that Claudine is half human and
Mm-hmm.
half werewolf. So the film really follows her struggling with these two adverse sides of herself that shouldn't coexist according to the rules at Monster High.
Yeah.
But within herself, they do. And she sort of brings in this fresh perspective of open mindedness. Oh, maybe not all humans are bad. Maybe we're stereotyping an
Yeah.
entire group of people, and maybe that's not really the best thing to do. So I think that is why that message is so important, just so that it can then be um, overcome by the end
Mm-hmm.
of the film. And that's really Claudine's objective, whether or not she knows it at the beginning of the movie.
And it leads to total acceptance by the end for everyone. Now, you've been acting professionally for a lot of years now. Is Monster High, would you say Monster High is something completely different from what you've done in the past?
I wouldn't say it's completely different. Actually, you never really know the trends of something until you can kind of take a step back and see, oh, yeah, that is kind of a pattern. But I actually have done quite a few Halloweeny type shows.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, last year I portrayed a teenage mischievous witch named Luna in a Disney Plus series called Just Beyond. And I was actually able to take a lot of what I learned about Luna and attribute it to Cleo, because I think the
Nice.
two share quite a few similarities. And before that, I was in another Halloween type show that's for probably a little bit of an older age group, just
Mm-hmm.
because it is a little scarier. And that was called The Birch on Facebook Watch.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Todd Holland is the director of Monster High. What did he do with you guys to sort of keep the mood light on the set so it reflects in your work and it comes out the way it did, a very fun, entertaining movie?
Honestly, the most work that Todd did was casting each of us perfectly, in my opinion, because, first of all, every castmate and honestly every crew member, every person on that set was just so enthusiastic and excited to be there. But especially the cast members, I mean, we just became such a little family throughout the film.
Mm-hmm.
And we would just look around constantly throughout, you know, scenes and just be like, oh my gosh, you're so Heath right now, or you're so Laguna. And just because each actor had so many little quirks
Mm-hmm.
and idiosyncrasies that they brought to their characters, and the overlap was insane. So I think Todd really, I mean, it's an understatement to say that he has an eye for these things,
Yeah,
because he just knew.
you guys all
And
clicked.
we all clicked. And yeah, other than that, I think he just really fostered an environment where we felt free to play and bring something new for each take. We did a lot of rehearsals and improvisational exercises in the boot camp weeks, where we got to explore the histories of our characters, and Todd facilitated all of that. So from the get-go, I think he really wanted this to feel like a safe space where we could feel free to explore and bring these characters to life.
This is a great film. Jai, I want to thank you for coming on here and just sharing some of your stories. This is a great family movie. It's entertaining. If you have kids, they're going to love it as well. The adults are going to love it. It's just fun, entertaining. It's musical. I enjoyed it very much. I have three older kids. They're in their late teens. But it brought me back to the days when I would sit and watch TV with my kids as well. So it was sort of a stroll back to memory lane. Thank you so much, Jai. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
Thank you so much for having me. I just hope that everybody really enjoys the film. It's a great Halloween movie, but I think it really applies to any time of year
Mm-hmm.
as well.
It
So
does. It
thank
does.
you.
I want to thank our audience, those of you who are tuning in live, and those of you who'll be watching this later on. On behalf of Jai and myself, stay safe and stay walking, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.